Good afternoon and welcome to Aliran's forum webinar. The topic today is Malaysia's education crisis. Is it too broken? Although we have called it a forum, I would like it to be more like a conversation because I think we need to talk about things rather than in an informal way than instead of a formal way. We also need to hear the narratives and to start off, because we do not have too much time, I would like to introduce our speakers today. With me today, we have Dr. Mohd Majid Konting, former professor of education at the Department of Foundations of Education, Faculty of Educational Studies, University Putra Malaysia, UPM. I've looked at your biodata and you've had various leadership positions in the university, so you would have a wide experience. So we are quite fortunate to have him with us. And across up north, we have with us Dr. Francis Loh, Professor of Politics in University Science, former Professor of Politics in University Science Malaysia, Penang, where he taught from 1979 to 2012. He has been involved with Aliran since the early 1980s. He served as his secretary for 20 years and as his president for 5, from 2011 to 2016. Did I get anything wrong, Francis? As a political activist, I think most of us in Aliran, I think he too believes that we can make a change when we speak or write about it. And with Dr. Francis, we also have Dr. Azmil Tayeb, who is going to be accompanying us today, who is a political scientist whose area of specialization includes political Islam and aspects of its education, both in Malaysia and Indonesia. So I think we have a wide range of specializations. As for myself, I'm Sukeshini Nair. I was with the Ministry of Education as a teacher for more than 3 decades, and as a school principal for 9 years. So I think my experience comes from within the system. So as much as I'm the moderator, I would also like to be part of the conversation.
No problem.
So, okay. So let's get on to it. We also have opened up a lot of questions from the public. So we have a lot of questions that were submitted. And I think during the course of this conversation, most of those questions would be addressed. So, and the other thing that has come up is a lot of questions were asked about higher education, the quality of higher education. So just to get the paradigms right, we are focusing today more on schools, education in schools rather than in higher education, but the two are related because one feeds the other. So if you do not correct the education in the school system, it will affect the higher education. Okay, and also the system, I think, is really massive. So we need to get started. So one of the first questions that I would like to ask a professor, can we say that we have an educational crisis? Would you say that the system is broken?
Okay, Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. First of all, I would like to thank Aliran. I just wonder why I'm here. And also my colleagues on the island, maybe. Dr. Ko and also Daniel is there, and then of course my friends here in the PJ. I think the issue of, as you mentioned about the crisis, is our education is in crisis. Yeah. So I think I have to qualify what does mean by a crisis. And if you look at the literature, it's something that's difficult, extremely difficult, and also what you call it, dangerous. and where it is element of what you call this one, the difficult,
Difficult to overcome.
yeah, and also the issue of suffering. Suffering. So I just wonder whether our situation, we're talking about our education system, can be both, is in crisis. What more? Too broken.
So you don't think we are there yet?
I don't think so. Because we can still survive with the system as for now.
If we allow this trajectory to continue,
Yeah,
we may have a crisis.
yeah.
Okay.
Sorry, Sukesh, again.
Somebody is
Are we
speaking.
facing an educational crisis?
You're Azmil, is it?
Azmil and Francis.
Are we facing an educational crisis?
Oh, so you're okay. You can hear me? Yeah.
Yes, we can.
I don't think, it's a crisis in that sense, but for sure we have been stagnating, and maybe rolling back a bit. Because I think to discuss this topic, we need to put it in some kind of a perspective. And the perspective is that for 30, 40 years, we had a very good run. We got a very good run. And, it put together, we've got universal primary school education, lower secondary school, upper secondary, 84% or so, and even university. Because of that big spurt that took place, we are registering about 17% of that age group, who are in tertiary higher education, and so on and so forth. But there are huge problems that have come alongside this democratization of education. And in a sense, we have not addressed those issues well yet, and it is an alarm. But I don't think, it's we are not in a crisis situation where you really need to actually now throw away the entire system. This is my own, my feeling. And I say so because I've been in this system for 30 odd years. I was teaching in the university and I saw it, slowly deteriorating, but some of the good parts of it remain. I also spent about 10 plus years, 11, 12 years as the chairman of the board of the principal Lasallian school in Penang and its 2 primary schools. So for that period of time, for about 12 years, I could actually observe very closely, intensely what was going on in the primary school, secondary school level. There's a huge problem, but I don't think we can talk about a crisis as such. I also say this because I study Southeast Asia, and I am currently looking very closely at what's happening in Burma. That's a crisis situation, for sure. And some other places also, we compare actually quite well to these places. But our system definitely needs fixing. Okay.
And it's something to be done. Okay. If you say that we still have some good things that's happening, what are the good things? Francis, just to ask you, because you mentioned that. Francis?
What are the good things that's happening? I think I think it has not been a very easy thing to pull together the 4 streams of education which we inherited at the point of colonialism, when that transitioned to independence. In a sense, this national education system tried to do something about it, and so it pulled together Chinese schools, the Malay schools, the Tamil-speaking schools, and the English schools. So pulled it together, and so this system could have broken apart, but it hasn't yet.
Yes,
and
it hasn't yet.
yeah, so it's one good thing. I mean, and I suppose I'm trying to engage in this conversation with a SWOT perspective, lah. What are some of the existing strengths still? But what are the looming weaknesses, as it were. And so I
Azmil,
want to look at it in that manner. Yeah.
Azmil, your thoughts?
Oh, okay. I agree with Dr. Majid. Looking at that, also we have to also question what kind of crisis the education system is facing now, right? I mean, there are different types of crisis, right? For me, I don't come from an education background, so I'm just gonna put it out there now. I mean, I'm a political scientist by training, the same like Francis. So for me, what concerns me, looking at the education system, is its role as a unifier, as a place to cultivate national identity that transcends, our ethnic and religious differences. I feel that there's a looming crisis there. When you look at the imbalance in schools, especially in primary school, I feel that that the national education system has somewhat, I wouldn't say abdicating its role, but it no longer functions as that because it's so becoming more and more mono-ethnic and mono-religious. So I feel that there's a crisis there looming on the horizon. You see like more non-Malay parents, sending their kids to non-national schools. Yeah, so I think perhaps we can talk more about that later on.
Yeah. So can I say that basically we have not reached that point of crisis, but we might be heading that way.
Not reached that point of crisis, but might be getting.
Yeah, might be heading that way. Yeah, so perhaps, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, but I think what you see in schools, in the education system, is perhaps a reflection of the fragmentation, the polarization that we see in our society right now.
So that is a problem that we are facing. But I think basically we may look at it as a crisis or near crisis if we look at there are two trends. There are two trends that's happening now. One is, as you have mentioned, the fact that we have 4 different streams of schools, and the other thing that is happening is the fact that we are not doing too well as far as our international ranking. So these are the two streams. Yeah, we are seeing 2 things happening. So as far as our international ranking, we have been consistently falling in our PISA rank, which is our program for international student assessment rankings. Ever since I think from 2013 or 2014, we have been dropping. For maths alone, we were at 440 in 2018. Now we are at 409 in 2023. We have dropped a lot. And we have had the largest drop in the region. We are not ranking right at the bottom because we are still ahead of Indonesia, but Vietnam has overtaken us. So I think, as you said, we are heading towards a crisis if we do not do something about it. So now my next question is, things have changed in the last 30, 40 years. Prof, what has changed?
Before I take your question about change, I think the issue of PISA and also I think teams and the rest of international. I think you have to understand when you talk about the quality of education, it depends on our service. And in our case, it's about education. And if you notice, our education actually the main purpose of education, the output and the outcome, is referring to develop or to produce a holistic individual in terms of the holistic character, and where the element of
We can't hear.
physical, emotional, spiritual, and also intellectual there. But if you look at the international international tests, assessment, things like a PISA, it's just focusing on the subject. It's a subject base. So I think you have to understand. I think so. Now the question of how valid, how reliable, and how usable is those kind of the so-called international assessment can be used to assess our educational system.
Okay. We cannot really use PISA as a benchmark because there are other elements that PISA does not assess.
Yeah.
Okay, and we might score higher. We might.
Yeah.
But I think. But would you say that things have changed in the last 30 years? One of the facts that, as Azmil has said, we have become more fragmented as a society. We have become less united. So what has changed in the last 30 years?
So I thought I just want to focus on the test first, because people, all over, are using the PISA result as gadget, maybe, to measure our performance. So if you look at, because I've been in the subject, in the area of testing, assessment, and the evaluation for the past 40 years. So I think it's unfair to say that our system is not performed. And you mentioned about the consistently drop. I don't think so, because the last PISA result, for example, actually it's all over the world. The 81 countries that took part in the PISA actually is a trend of zombie because of the pandemic.
Yeah.
So it is unfair to say that our system is constantly dropped.
Yes, but we have to drop the most. We have dropped the most.
That's accurate. But you have to remember, one is about being the the person who work on the examination, on the assessment. You have to understand. First, it's about whether the test is valid or not. In terms of our national what you call the educational outcome. And then the second, the test result, whether those three actually is valid or not to measure the so-called functional knowledge. We know that there are many aspects of functional knowledge expected to perform in the future, where PISA is just a projection now for the future. So in our system, for example, in our school level, we have at least 6 area that we have to focus on. One is about knowledge, the second is about the thinking scale, third is about leadership scale, fourth is bilingual, fifth is about I think the ethics and also the spiritual, and then the sixth is about national pride or things like that. So, to be fair, I think we have to look at that, because we are talking about assessment or the system. So, talk about the drop, so that's maybe it's just a small fraction on the functional knowledge and scale. Because you're talking about drop, and this drop actually is everywhere, but we still command a good position in talking about the region, for example. Of course, people can say that Vietnam is taking over us, but we still will fare better in the last PISA, 51 out of 81, right?
Yes, but
And another thing, actually, as a statistician, looking at this kind of data, we don't use the what called those raw score. As mentioned by the PISA, we normally better to use a percentile. It is not the income, it's not quantitative, purely quantitative, like income, like age, but it is just social. The measure of some
evaluation.
social evaluation. So it's better to use quartile. And I think our position is.
So in other words, you're saying that we should not rely on the PISA as.
I'm not saying that not rely, but they don't rely fully. It can indicate something, but we have, being assessment people, we have to look at some detail whether that instrument is reliable or not, is valid or not.
Okay, thank you.
Right.
Penang, your thoughts, Francis Azmil.
Couldn't hear very clearly if you
Can't hear.
We couldn't hear you too clearly. Could you phrase your question to us?
No, because I asked the question, because if you perceive that there is a change, I think Francis mentioned that there is a change, you are seeing a change in the last 30 years. And so I asked, one of the indicators of this change is a PISA score. And Professor Majid says that we cannot rely too much on the PISA score because it is very objective in its evaluation. It's very objective, not a subjective measure. So, do you agree with that?
Yeah, go ahead.
For me, it is the PISA is not an important criteria, to measure the changes that I'm trying to suggest. For me,
Yes.
actually, the biggest problem that we face is we have actually done massively well in democratizing education at all the various
Yes,
levels.
I agree.
Okay. But because of that, we have not been able to, we have compromised the quality of education that we once had. For me, this is actually the big aspect of the crisis. And PISA is very indirectly involved in that. For me, it comes down to where are we doing a good job with training our teachers? Maybe the focus is there actually. Not, and I'm talking about both at the school level as well as in the university. And we have actually our students, we did so well, bring them into the system, but we have not given them the quality education that they deserve. And they're going to face a huge problem finding jobs. They're going to have Malaysia will face a huge problem, in terms of HRD, human resource development, and we're not going to be able to compete against, Singapore and China and Japan, let alone, I mean, these places maybe we might still have the edge over Cambodia, Laos, Myanmar and all that. And East Timor is coming in as our neighbor. Yeah, we'll have the edge there. But Vietnam, for instance, is overtaking us in the PISA scores. So it's for me, this is the aspect. Zero in on actually, this is the manpower problem. And I want to address that first and foremost. And we perhaps don't have the necessary measure, to actually determine to what extent the rot has set in. But for me, it is possible for us to actually do something about it. I have remained in the public education system throughout my whole, the last 4 or 5 decades. At the school level, I put my heart and soul in trying to do something about this at the school, primary school, secondary schools level. And I still believe that you can do something about it, but the rot has to be settled. And I was so expectant. I was so enthusiastic when a new change of government took place. Maybe they'll listen to us finally, and this is the aspiration, this is the hope, that actually you can do something, but the top must listen to us. We have got proposals about what we ought to be doing.
Okay, because
So that's why we are here. That's why we are here, because we want people to listen to us.
Okay, so we got some questions from the floor audience. Some of the people
Not
are
yet,
pouring in questions. Was the education system in crisis because Anwar, when education minister, radicalized some of the Malay Muslims? And Sukun, I think
we will come to that. We will come to that eventually. We will be talking about that.
Okay.
Jump the gun. We don't want to jump the gun. But I think among the questions that I would like to ask is what Francis mentioned just now about the quality of teachers. Now, like I said, I want this to be a conversation, not so much about a forum as well.
Yeah.
Quality of teachers. Now, I'm speaking as from my experience as a teacher and a school principal. I think that we have, as Francis said, we have a manpower issue. The quality of our manpower. We have issues with the quality of teachers. We have issues with the quality of leaders, school leaders. Now, of these two, I think we need to prioritize school leadership, because I think even if you don't have the quality of teachers, if you have good school leaders, they can change.
Yeah.
Okay, this comes to your pet topic, Francis, eventually. What do you think about the role of school, the problem of the quality of teachers and the quality of school leaders?
I think, as you know, the gist of education is the teachers. Leadership, I think, I'm not saying they're not important, but I think the second. So now we have about, what, millions of teachers here in Malaysia?
Oh,
No, not even. 400,000?
yes, about
Yeah.
500,000.
Yeah,
480,000. 480,000.
Oh, thank you very much. So with this very large amount, I mean, number of teachers and the diversity of them, and I think the challenge of teacher development is about the time, you know, because in our system, I'm talking about the public system, they will be supposed to be there for what, 30, 40 years? Okay, Sukesh? All right. Yeah. So, and changes is always happening by this, all right? So how can we develop and make sure that the teachers is prepared for tomorrow?
Tomorrow.
Tomorrow, yeah. For tomorrow especially. So I think this is a
challenge. Will that be a challenge?
Yeah, a big challenge for us. It's not talking about the numbers, but in terms how they are very adaptable to change. I think it's a challenge. Things like when we have technology the other day, I know what you call the online teaching, and now we're talking about what you call the AI. So I just wonder whether the teachers understand, oh, they're still struggling with the basic, needs or basic knowledge.
So in your opinion, who should pick teachers with this new knowledge?
I think of course everyone of us, including you and I. Of course, the ministry.
So this is a challenge that we need to consider, the fact that teachers go in and they're there for 30 years and then they get lagged behind because the technology is too fast, and it's getting even faster now.
Yeah. And when talking about who, and then the next is the leadership, because there is a need to manage this change. And then next, I don't think we need leadership first, and then we push the teacher to change.
Okay, I just need to add on. Personally, I understand that teachers need to change, but that is something I expect teachers to do.
Yeah.
I expect good teachers be able to change with the times. They have to be learners first before they can teach.
Yeah.
Now, if they are not going to teach, if they're not going to learn, they can't teach well. That's basically it. Now, so I've always felt that good leaders can provide CPD, good CPD, continuing professional development on site. Teachers learn a lot more. It's when they start when teachers are initiated into the teaching profession, it's a start. But after that, they're on their own.
Yeah.
So the school system, within the school system, they have to provide this continuing professional development. Francis, your take on that?
Yeah, I mean, my point is also that the teachers need to be, like egged on to be creative, to take on new responsibilities. Yeah, I want to contrast. When I was going to school, I had excellent teachers who actually didn't have to listen to bureaucracy breathing down after them all the time and all that. And they were allowed to actually, take the initiative to resolve an issue, to resolve a problem. They could address the issue at hand. Today, teachers too often wait for instructions from PPD, from JPN, from Kementerian before they will actually dare to move, because there's tata tertib, and so there are too many. The whole process is, as the system expanded, the government, instead of actually allowing this creativity to grow and to actually be diversified, which requires then very difficult, way of monitoring it, we actually decided to let us curb it, let us control it. And this is reflective of the whole bureaucratization of our society that has been occurring over the last 30, 40 years. So it's I want to link, it's again, if you come back to this question of crisis in the country, you know, you have to acknowledge that our political system is also in crisis then. You know, so it comes in tandem, you see. So our educational system actually reflects what is happening in our society, in our political system at large. You know, and just as we have bureaucratized our politics to the umpteenth degree, we have also begun to bureaucratize, you know, and our educational system. And teachers all the time are complaining, I have no time to prepare for my lessons properly. I cannot be creative the way you are suggesting that I do because I have to fill up the forms. You know, the forms need the assessment forms. And this is coming from the center. You know, so this is the problem. They cannot become effective teachers. So, and we were trying to, I was involved in, for instance, in the school that we were in, we were trying to do, like get the teachers to become recommitted to their role as teachers, in trying to empower students with knowledge, and daring to go out and all. They say, no, but this is outside the curriculum. The students are not required to do this, and I'm not going to go out of my way to do this. But we slowly persevered, and this happens increasingly as sometimes the new teachers are very open to these ideas, but once you become more middle-aged, you become, 10 years into the job, you're not particularly interested in this anymore.
Okay.
Can I add something? I tend to agree with what Dr. Loh saying, but I beg a different in terms of some of the issue. Yes, we need we need to be democratic. We need to. As you know, the teachers when coming into the system, they are actually well prepared. They are very energetic. They're young and they are open to new changes like the technology and so on. And now they have to face this kind of school culture. Not only the the environment, probably the more senior people are in using the old system probably, and of course the kind of leadership style, whether they are receptive or not with these new things coming in. And of course, as mentioned by Dr. Loh, it's about all the what you call the not ACTA, the regulation and all those things, the cleaning and the kind of things. But for me, that kind of the so-called the barrier of for change is for me it's just the gate, or it's just the fence for us, for the teachers. Yes, actually, you can talking about to be a good teachers, as mentioned, Basul, to visit, to open up, to use a different style of teaching. I think it's quite open, am I right? That actually is just to be used in case you got stray, away from, I think we need that kind of. Otherwise, without that.
Okay.
I can imagine what will happen.
Understand that we can't give too much of freedom.
Yeah.
We can't give too
A lot, just like a democracy.
We need a little bit,
Some.
little bit of guidance.
And the challenge is not how you may know about that.
So now I'm going to ask a very difficult question. Now
Really difficult?
I'm going to ask a difficult question. Okay. Pertaining to the question that was asked earlier. The quality of teachers that we have. Because Francis talked about the politicization of education, and there might be, and I'm wondering if there is a policy, whether it is a written policy or an unwritten policy on who becomes teachers. You know what I'm trying to say, because Is there a racial formula into who becomes teachers? Is there a religious formula into who? Is there some kind of political issue that determines who becomes teachers? Because personally, I'm speaking from the ground. I'm speaking about people, my ex-students, who are very good in English, who wanted to become teachers, who applied to become teachers, English language teachers, who were not accepted. Okay? Yet, I'm talking about myself as an English language teacher. I'm asking the hard questions because I have had English language teachers who could not speak English. I'll be very frank.
Yeah.
They could not speak English. They were there in the classroom and I don't know what they were teaching. There was even a teacher who just resigned because she says, they resigned as the Kata Panitia because she felt that she was inadequate.
Okay.
Since I was a pengetua and I was, so are we compromising? And there was one of the questions that asked the quality of teachers, even history teachers, not qualified to teach English. BM teachers who are supposed to be teaching BM, when we look at the qualification, they do not have any BM, they are from Islamics. So why is this happening, Prof?
I'm not very sure whether this is a random,
It's
postpone.
quite, you can find it in a lot of places.
Yes, but overall, from my experience, because I also involved in this selection of teachers in my particular institution, I think we have a general guideline. For example, in the past 10 years, we select among the best, the top of the SPM or maybe the matriculation graduates.
Matriculation.
Yeah. So I think generally, based on the write-up, it's called criteria, they're supposed to meet the what they call the requirement. In fact, we interview them, especially for the English and even the certain subject. Yeah. I'm not very sure about so that's why generally we have the system to select the best, to select the most appropriate. But sometimes, because due to different geographical area, people, especially from the East Malaysia, so we cannot use the same state, so we give some leeway, but still within the minimum requirement to become the candidate of teacher training. So I'm not worried so what will happen. I'm talking about it because in our system we don't have, as far as I know, we don't have the professional charter or something like that. So I'm not very sure whether it's the what you call the replacement teachers or
No. This is a permanent. I'm talking about permanent teachers.
So yes, I will take it as a isolated cases. If that happens, it's not everywhere. I mean, if you can find 10 or 20 of them and bring it to, and then we can speak better. But
No, so this is speculation because I'm.
but if you have 1 or 2 cases, I will consider. I mean, because I'm a statistician, I consider it's an alliance.
Okay. How would you explain that over the years,
Yeah.
the demography of schools, demography of national schools
Yeah.
has changed quite a bit. When we had like 60%, 40% non-Malay teachers, 60% Malay teachers. You go to any school now, you'll see at least 80 to 90% Malay teachers and very few non-Malay teachers. So this is another thing. I feel I'm saying that we should have more of a racial parallel in schools so that we can make schools more like
Vibrant.
yes, more vibrant. That it becomes more like our natural world.
Yeah.
You see, so what do you think about that?
I think there should be, and I think I suspect the ministry also have taken off ideas.
Addressing this?
I think they're talking about the quota. I mean,
Is there a quota?
Because some people
Is there
don't agree. I don't know whether Aliran they agree or not with the quota system. So that's the issue now. If you open the purely based on merit, with considering that one, I think it's not only just Malay, but just remember our colleagues in rural Sabah and Sarawak, I was going to teach them, something like that. Yeah. So yes, quota is just necessary, but how we play with it.
Why is it necessary?
Yeah,
Even
necessary
we
because
take the best.
as you mentioned just now, 60, 40%.
Yes, I mean that kind of quota, yes.
Is it
Yeah.
quota?
Yes.
Yeah.
Feel that we need to put the best people.
So that's why. So I think we work together actually. So I think yeah, there is some element of quota, just like the democracy. It's not free. There is no free democracy. There's some in a kind of the so-called control democracy. But then the thing, how we play with it. I mean, that's a challenge for us. As I said just now about teachers, for example. Yes, the teachers are prepared for it. I mean, new teachers coming in with a new knowledge, new development. But what happened in the system, for example? So I think we have to give some kind of leeway. I think the most important thing is how can we move up? If we can still have the all,
We need to move up as far as we are capable of producing outcomes.
Exactly.
That's one.
Exactly.
Number two, we also need to move in the direction of building a national identity.
Exactly.
So these are the two things. But our national schools have become more and more unpopular today.
Okay.
Yeah, because we have 15%, 15.3% of the enrollment in Chinese schools are Malays.
Right.
Okay, so even Malays are towards Chinese schools.
Right.
Okay, and then we have international schools coming in.
Mm.
So why is this happening?
When you talk about the popularity, I think it's based on the numbers, am I right? National schools still command the best. I
They
think
have
around
best
70%.
Yes.
Am I right? Yeah. So when you talk about the popularity, so of course, talking about what you call, yes,
Can I interrupt here? I think when you talk about those who can afford to choose,
that's the one. So now you're talking about the popularity first. I'm talking about the popularity first. In terms of popularity, national schools still command the best. All right, 70%, around 70%. All right, and that is because maybe our system, we basically agree and allow the vernacular school to come in. All right.
did we agree? It was from the
Whatever is it, we do agree politically.
yes.
You're talking about the politics just now. So there's a politics, not educationists. Education is fine. Everyone have the right to get the best education. But it's because of the politics and that's happened. All right. So we have to accept it. All right. Okay. So now popularity, and then you're talking about the number of Malay coming in.
You need to charge my phone.
Correct. So now you are talking about the what you call the Malays coming to the what you call the vernacular and the international school. I think the situation is the same because when talking about like 30, 40 years, I mean 30 years different. I mean it's a growth, as you mentioned, just more popular.
No.
So let me finish that. To talk about that, I think it's you have to see the situation now. It's more and more international schools opening, more and more the Chinese school in the urban. All right, and then they are getting less and less popular in the rural area. And when you talk about the vernacular, you have to be careful. Which vernacular? Because we have two systems here: the Chinese and the Tamil. So in the Tamil, I'm not saying any significant movement. There is a movement, but it's not significant statistically.
Okay.
All right. So
my question is, is this increasing popularity with those people who can afford to shift?
Yeah, that's right.
Because of perceived decline in the quality of education.
No, not this. That you cannot generalize that. I think first because more opening of the opportunity. I mean, there is a opportunity of
education system in the national schools is good.
No. Let me finish. And first is because of even if you say the perceived declining blah blah blah, there is no opportunity for them to move to the Chinese school and also the
Providing.
yeah. So
Yeah.
first, because there's opportunity to establish the international and also the Chinese school, and the second is what you call, because the perceived, as you mentioned just now, the perceived what you call that the Chinese school is offering a much better functional knowledge in terms of language. And then the third is because the perceived,
I can't see this.
sorry, because of the, what you call the, what you call, sorry, and I think basically the trend is the same. If you notice that it's not only the vernacular Chinese school and also the international school, but you don't forget about the religious school. They are coming up.
Okay. I just asked, is Azmil there? Is Azmil
Yes,
there?
yes, yes. They just mentioned religious schools.
Azmil.
What is it about religious school?
Yes. Azmil, I want to ask another question. Would national schools be perceived as having becoming too Islamic? Would that be another issue?
What was
Can I
the last
have-
part, Sukesh? The religious school was perceived as what?
As national schools being perceived as more Islamic.
Islamic, yeah.
Aha, okay, I see.
Yeah.
Um,
Would that be because Professor Majid doesn't think that national schools are less popular because he says that it's less popular. It only looks like it's less popular because we have opportunities and choices. So as people become more able to afford those choices, they are moving.
mhm.
So it's not a matter of perception that the national schools are not as good. But the other issue is, okay, so one, it's questionable whether the quality of national schools is not good. The other question is, are our national schools being seen as being more Islamized?
Yeah, I think that's a general perception. As I mentioned before, it's a reflection of what we have seen in the society. So we see this Islamic resurgent wave for the past 40 years, right? And then we can observe, the society that's highly Islamized. You can see more pervasive influence of Islam in the society, and that includes school as well, right? So you can see the increase of Islamic content in school, or even the programs that centered towards more Islamic rituals and practices, right? And that gives a perception that this is it is becoming increasingly, Malay Islamic centric, right, in school.
So could this be one of the reasons why there is a shift towards the other schools?
Yeah, I think there's also demands from Malay parents. When they send their kids to national school, there is this demand and need, for the kids to be taught these Islamic subjects, right? For schools to provide instructions, in Islamic subjects beyond the basic subject that we have. So it's in a way for parents to sort of to delegate, right, the responsibility of providing the Islamic education, from privately from home to the school. So it becomes the responsibility of the school now to provide that, right? So, and that puts the burden on national school, right? I mean, we're not just talking about national school, but there also the kafah school, outside of that kids, would still go after their school hours, right? So you cannot have the supply without the demand, right? It's precisely because of this demand from parents for their kids to have more and more exposure, more Islamic learning. Then you can see this, the content is increasingly becoming more Islamic centric. And then of course when it has that effect as well, to maybe this turn off, those who might not be open, to, they say that international schools should be more inclusive, right? Maybe, religious practice should be private, not in national school. And then these are the people who have options to go to, the Chinese vernacular school, or if you can afford it, you go to international schools, so or even you see the rise of private Islamic schools as well among well-to-do, Malay, upper middle class who can afford, the high tuition fee of Islamic private school. You see the mushrooming, in places like Shah Alam or Bangi, where you find these affluent Muslim professionals, right, who wants the best of both worlds. They want the best of Islamic education.
Okay. So looks like what is your view?
Incurring the wrath of God, we're talking about. So I think we're seeing that trend as well, Sukesh. So we're seeing that Muslim parents who are, this increasing numbers of private Islamic schools in affluent Malay Muslim neighborhoods, in Bangi and Shah Alam. They are looking for the best of both worlds, secular education and also Islamic education. And then the kids actually, when they go to university, they don't study, they don't do Islamic studies. They study all this, engineering, lawyer, medicine, right? But they also become good Muslims, right? Because they have this grounding. So you see this trend as well now.
You want to say?
Yeah, sure. I think we have to understand. Okay, we have basically what you call the national school. I mean, the major one. And then also the what you call the vernacular school, the Tamil and also the Chinese, and of course those who call private, international and so on. I think let's focus on this three, the so-called national school, national system. Okay, you see what happened. This is my observation. So you have this national school, and the Malay Muslim actually is rooted 500 years, since the Malacca Sultanate. We are focusing actually more on the education, on the madrasah, on the pondok, So I think the Islamic, the so-called education system had been there, for 500, almost 100 years.
Okay.
100 years. So now, when we choose politically, probably, to have these three instead of one, okay, and then what the choice for the Malay Muslim? We have national there, and you have Chinese or maybe Buddhist, to go to what you call the Chinese. There's the Hindu and the Tamil go to what you call the Tamil school, and what the choice for the Malay? So, and as mentioned by...
Schools are there.
Sorry?
The national schools offer them Malay.
Yeah, I mean, we are talking about focusing on the three, the so-called national system. So as mentioned by our colleagues just now, what the choice of the Malay, when we actually, our focus also is not only in the world, on the functional knowledge, but also working towards the after. So where is the space for them? Where is the space for them? That's my question.
Okay.
And we are pushing now, the so-called well-established Muslim, system, education system.
Okay. So what do we need to do now with the education system? What are the suggestions? Francis?
My turn.
Yes, your turn.
No, I think I want to go back to your point, when you kicked off this round of discussion, which is actually about how did we compromise the quality of our teachers? And I think we just go back to numbers. We're talking about, I mentioned just now wrongly, 420 teachers, 80,000 administrators. That's 500,000. Half a million So they are recruiting a lot of people, but we have not prepared them well enough, and so it's once upon a time, the teachers who came in were people who desired to become teachers. Nowadays, perhaps because of parents, there's this stigma about becoming a teacher. And you always tell the students, your children, you better study hard. If you don't, you end up as a teacher. I mean, and this is the attitude. Why? Because the nature of our society has changed, the economy has changed. Once upon a time, you tried to become a lawyer, an engineer, perhaps a politician, and a teacher. Today, it's choice number 20, maybe even 30, because you wanted to become now maybe a stockbroker, a chef, influencer, computer scientist. There are all these other options before actually you don't even choose, to become a teacher. You are assigned. You cannot get into a university. You have to do education. So I compare myself. Once upon a time, I decided to become a teacher, and Professor Konting and Sukesh and all that, you were all excellent students, and we chose to become teachers. In this case, you are dragoon, you end up being in this, bottom choice, So I can imagine. So I think we have to restore the dignity of becoming a teacher once again. And this is why I like the whole Finland system. The whole Finland example is to become a teacher is seen to be extremely noble in that society. Your salary is also very good. And actually, the parents, the community respects you a lot. Nowadays, you don't. Salary lousy, nobody respects you. Parents even tell you don't go and do it. And maybe you end up not being able to marry anybody. So it's the whole status. There's no status in becoming a teacher anymore. So this is one point I want to make. The second point is about, just now we were also talking about these schools. Why are, why are people choosing to go into national school, getting out of national schools and all that? I can only mention about the Sekolah Mubalik. The Sekolah Mubalik under 1996 Education Act, although in the Act, there are only two types of schools, Sekolah Kebangsaan and Sekolah Bantuan Kebangsaan. In fact, however, all these old schools whose names have all changed to SKM, SMK, SMR, and all that, names have changed, but actually they are still regarded as Sekolah Mubalik as under the 1961 Act. So they are still denied. And I couldn't get any money for my school. We couldn't even get chairs and tables. So the parents say, what the hell? Let's go to the Chinese school next door, where you don't have to go and fight over these kinds of things. Yeah. But I want to just add, this is how politics comes in the system. When in Penang, the Pakatan government, what happened? Speak here. Oh, not here. When the Pakatan government came to power, suddenly Sekolah Agama Rakyat, Chinese schools, Tamil schools, Sekolah Mubalik were all invited. Apply for funds. We are going to give you funds. Federal government doesn't give you these funds, for grant in aids and capital grants. So you actually, it was like Durian Runtuh. And not only that, federal government looked at this is Barisan Nasional. Oh, we better do something. So they changed their policy. And in the 10 years that I was in my school as chairperson, I brought in about 1 million for my school and 500,000 each for the two primary schools. This is from federal and state governments. And suddenly we could rewire the school because there was threatening to have, when there's lightning threatening to burn up, we could retile the school, we could bring CCTV. The labs in my school were exactly the same labs as when I left school 50 years ago. Now we had some money to actually change the labs, to improve the labs. So there's also this reason why people began to shift, not just because of discipline, not only because of, in the schools, Chinese, the good education and all that, but actually the conditions, physical conditions of these schools went begging. And this includes a school like St. Xavier's, the oldest, Sekolah Mubalik in the country, as well as a place like Penang Free School, which is the oldest school in the whole country. The conditions were so bad compared to some of the conditions in Sekolah Kebangsaan. Okay, so this is the two. I just hope that we have time also to begin to talk about what can we do about this, and I feel strongly that actually decentralization is the answer. But before we get into that, maybe other people got things to say first.
Oh, I think that's about it. I think we need to go to the third part. I'm just going to say that if we do not have the, what you say, knowledge, if we do not have the competency, the country will decline eventually because we will be less attractive to investors. It will affect our overall economy. And we might become labor to other countries. We may have to export. We do not know. But I think so there is this recognition of the fact that we need to do something to address the system, to redress the system. Although we may differ in our opinion whether it is crisis, approaching crisis or not, if we do not do something, it will lead us further down the ranks, whatever ranks, whether we want to compare. But I think we are always comparing ourselves. We have to compare ourselves with other countries because in the end, the economy is comparative. It's depending on the comparisons between other countries. Vietnam will be more attractive to others than we are. So now what do? We don't have much time, but I think I will let Francis talk about one of your ideas about how we can go about this.
Decentralization.
Yes.
Yeah, I'd like to talk about that a bit. I think, in the Malaysian education blueprint that Professor Konting himself was involved in, one of the most exciting recommendations there is that we must decentralize. But I think what has happened in Malaysia is not a decentralization process, which is accompanied by devolution of powers to the lower levels, but actually is what in political science we call deconcentration. So Putrajaya, New Delhi, Washington makes all the decisions, and then you get the district education office to implement it. And so they have no room to maneuver. They're not able to actually accommodate their own circumstances of that particular area. So like history syllabus, you cannot go and suddenly go, oh, I want to study about Julotong, and my students go out and make assignments about the personalities in Julotong and all that. No, that's not acceptable. You still have to follow the guidelines of the center. So I want this, and I want to, the whole trend in the region, and this includes countries which are not federal. We're talking about Philippines, Indonesia, Vietnam, all of them are decentralizing. Malaysia, which is federal, is actually the reversing, is doing the reverse. We're actually doing the reverse because of Dasar Ekonomi Baru. Center Putrajaya has to monitor, make sure all the targets are met and all that. And this has been the bane, actually of all our other policies vis-a-vis like transport, economic development and all that. We have to make sure the ethnic quota is fulfilled. So this is actually how we have centralized at a time when we should be decentralizing. And to address this crisis, you need to decentralize. And when I say decentralize, it's sort of like you look at your family situation. The father, mother brings up the children, one shoe not going to fit all. You actually cater to the special circumstances of your boy or your girl, allow them to be creative, to be able to reach their potential. Our system doesn't allow our young children in all our schools throughout the different parts of the country to reach their potential. And for me, that's the important thing. And if you want to restore the excellence in our education system, we need the young people to be with us. We have to allow them we have to tap into their potential. And this for me is the way to do it. And when I say decentralization, again, it is not decentralized all the same in Perak, in North Perak, Ulu Perak, Selatan, it's not the same. It will be tailored to the circumstances of the particular area.
So,
The point is also that maybe we don't have the capacity, but we have to, you're going to learn to swim, you have to dive into the pool. You want to learn to ride the bicycle, you have to fall down a few times. And I would just want to warn ourselves that actually in Myanmar, they are decentralizing in the new Myanmar that's going to be created. And they are decentralizing, they are introducing 3 languages, English, Burmese, mother tongue education. And so we need to actually, we are not in a crisis situation where we are going to explode, but it's looming. There's some time for us. I was so enthused when we changed the government. Maybe now there's some room to maneuver. Thus far, we are still waiting. Yeah.
Anything on that?
All right. Yes, I just wonder about the concept of decentralization. Is it in terms of the administration of education or those what we call it the education activities? As far as I know, in terms of education activities, it's quite decentralized. School, they have the opportunity to develop their own learning space, opportunity. This is my experience actually, being the what you call the chairman of PTA for almost 12 years in the secondary, and and the deputy in the primary in the Dinkel. And I think I'm not saying that we are successful, but our project has been been expanded to the national. Maybe you remember on the smart education and I think the rest is history about ICT, technology, and so on. And we also developed some kind of links. And I think maybe we are the first to connect the school at that time with the 21 country, 21 school in other countries, in 21 countries, I can say, Japan, Korea, Australia, US, Canada, South Africa. So I think if you are talking about decentralized of the educational opportunity, I think there is a lot of space in the country.
A lot of space.
Yeah, so a lot of space. I think the ministry also welcome that kind of initiative. I'm not very sure what the Dr. Loh are talking about. So I think the challenge now in terms of education, we have to go back to the opportunity given. I'm talking about the quality, the learning that we provide for the student. And of course, I will go for the deep learning, and we need a good teacher, to what you call manage this kind of deep learning, meaningful learning. Now, the challenge is, as you mentioned now, I mean, most of our problems again and again it's about unity, about basically wrong perception that national school is more religious, the Chinese is more, So I think we have to go back, come back, discuss on table. And I think we have to provide the community. We have to strengthen our communities. Because being a Muslim and being the Indian, non-Malay, I think there are a lot of commonality between us. Why don't we work together on that? And then and I think there is a call for to leverage on our diversity, the strength of our diversity. So I think this will enrich, our nation, our people. We're talking about I don't talk about the human resource, but I'm talking about human talent, because the purpose of education is to expand, to develop human talent rather than resources.
So in other words, what you're saying that we need to have I think the ministry needs to have a lot of dialogue before it commences with its next blueprint. It's already coming up.
Which we're talking about blueprint.
The next blueprint is coming
The
up.
next blueprint next year. Yeah.
My problem with blueprints is, as Francis has mentioned, it is centralized. It's a plan that's up in the center, and schools don't have ownership of that blueprint. Okay.
Sorry. Now, that's the challenge.
Yes, we need to have more dialogue. We have to have more dialogue with the ministry. We have to listen to the narratives of the teachers.
Yeah, sure.
Teachers, I think the curriculum has to change. The exam systems have to change. A lot of complaints, from what I see, a lot of complaints about teachers being overworked because of school-based assessment.
School-based.
Okay, so school-based assessment. This is from the questions that the teachers, that the audience have asked prior to this sentence. School-based assessment. There is no exams in primary school.
Yeah.
We may need to bring the exams back. I'm not sure.
I don't think so.
Disagree. We may have to, that will give, if you bring the exams back, it gives teachers more time to develop students. There's more creativity. I mean, we are products of exams.
Yeah.
Most of us are products of exams. The theory out there is that we don't need exams. I'm not sure. There is only one exam. In the end, they still have to sit for exams.
I think talk exam, and if you give me a space to some share. I think we have been moving from the content based to the outcome based.
I think, are there any questions?
Yes. So,
Anyone here?
huh?
Because we only got another 10 minutes.
Okay. Then we have to stop here.
Any questions? There are questions here.
Questions.
We have addressed. Henry Loh, is the nation ready to bite the bullet and replace all vernacular schools and only allow national schools, but with the allowance for students to pursue Chinese or Tamil as an option? Dialogue is needed. You can just pull up a tree.
A lot of students pulling their children out from the national school. You must ask the question why. Otherwise, you cannot make rectification. 16% of the curriculum is on religious studies. One is not against religious studies, but during that time, the non-Malay students have 11, 12 periods of moral studies. So they are really wasting their time. 7% is spent on maths and 7% on science. So how are we going to develop? And I think it is wrong for parents to abdicate their responsibility for religion to an institution. I think us have to take responsibility for the education of religion in our own lives. Give that to an institution. What are you doing? You see? So I feel there must be a dialogue. Second thing, I feel the standards are necessary. There is a tremendous fear of meritocracy. But look, we need meritocracy. Otherwise, we won't get good doctors. Tomorrow, you want an operation, you won't get a good doctor. So certain things have to be done. And then there is need to fear about being held accountable. So exams are necessary. The world over there are exams, and those countries that are doing well have these things. And I think we have to go back to UPSR. I mean, I have 3 daughters who went through the local system, and I'm very happy with that. I'm sad now that no tests are being done. And as who has been over the last 20 years managing an international school, I can see the quality of from one university to another. We get teachers coming in and we interview them, and we can see the variation in standards, particularly in language, confidence, delivery.
So there is a decline in the quality of our, exactly. So it's not just, there is a difference.
Yeah.
Do you think that we should, as Henry, I'm going back to Henry Loh's question, is the nation ready to bite the bullet and replace vernacular schools and allow national schools with allowance for students to pursue Chinese and Tamil school? What do you think, Francis and Azmil?
I jump in.
Should we disallow replace vernacular schools?
Can I just, I want to just say that actually we must get away from this as the critical point in our educational system. Our problem, this is not the reason why we have a crisis. It's not because of this divide. This is a given. It's, I mean, throughout the world, you actually have this democratization of the educational system as you decentralize. Okay, in India, you can go to kindergarten and go to university in Gujarati or Tamil or Punjabi or Bihar, some other language without any problem. The important thing is actually how do you balance that relationship between what the federal government ought to do, what should state governments do, and even in a place like Japan, what should the local government do? There is Osaka University, where the metropolitan Osaka plays the main role, not the imperial universities, which is actually federal. I mean, not as central government. So it's you want to make that relationship between union government or central government, provincial, state, and local government. Just clarify that relationship. In Malaysia, we just think that there's only one role, that the role has to be played by central government, which is actually not the norm throughout the world. We are so funny. We are so out of date. So this is the thing that we have to get to. Plus, this use of multilingual, multi-different languages is also becoming increasingly important. Like I told you, in Burma, as they're getting out of this revolution, they are proposing a trilingual educational system. I think that's on the cards. Otherwise, the Karen, the Kachin, Arakanis and all that, they're not coming along if you don't allow us our mother tongue education in this day and age. In India, they honor and respect this. And if you look at the 500 rupees, note of India, you will see that actually it's got 15 different scripts there, signifying actually the different languages that's being used in the different states. So Malaysia is, in a sense, we have to open our eyes, look around us at what's happening. And I feel that the longer you just get bogged down by this question of this divide between vernacular and national, then we're not going to recognize the source of our problem. The source of our problem is our teachers are not up to scratch anymore. We have done an excellent job of providing universal education. Excellent, much better than so many of our neighbors. But our teachers, there's a huge problem there. Plus, actually, we are overly centralized. 500,000 administrators and teachers, 5,000 schools, no, 10,000 schools, yeah, and 5 million children in school, but all controlled by Putrajaya. That's ridiculous. This is the largest ministry in the whole country. It cannot be run efficiently. Yeah.
Okay. And also, the other thing that's come up is someone has mentioned that we have such a huge budget allocated to education. So I think if the ministry can come up with a dialogue to get decentralization off, we can't do it straight away. Like I said, we have to learn to fall off the bicycle. We need to, but there has to be a plan.
Issuing away.
Not issuing away is going towards meritocracy. Yes, you would like to say something?
Yeah.
Can you come here because the mic is here?
In this issue of national schools migration to the other options available, I think the government of the day will always have this challenge now. First is that whether we should have full integration or should we also give leeway to diversity, meaning
It's a balance.
yeah, it's a balance. It's very difficult at this point in time, especially in Malaysia. Okay, in some other countries, they just steamroll the thing, we integrate. If you want your own language, you have that as a subject, or after school hours, it's okay. But over here, I think we have to play by the ear. So we cannot, the only way is through dialogue. And then we must have a very civil dialogue, no emotions involved.
Yeah.
Second is this question of the qualification of teachers. This story, put it this way, I was once a student. My children were once student. My grandchildren is now a student. So I can see the evolution of the education system. During my time, there's only two. That is sekolah kebangsaan, sekolah jenis kebangsaan. Meaning, you can have your own Chinese medium apa semua, Tamil medium, but you have English, and then you have the SMK lah, sekolah menengah kebangsaan 3 lah. But at that time, I was the English medium lah. They were Chinese, they were Malays,
Yes.
they were Indian. When come to class Ugama, what they did was, okay, the Malay Muslim group, go for your class Ugama. For the other nons, you go for your POL, pupils own language. By subject, by period, no issue that time. So we all graduate from the school. We are now dah retired from work. No problem. Then the next generation, my children, there was some changes lah. But they did say to me they have some problem with some of the teachers lah. But I feel it's more of some of the teachers don't have the passion to teach. No, passion is very important. Even if you are qualified academically, if you don't have the passion, and if the husband of the teacher is not understanding, cooperative, the teacher punya life in school can be so unbearable. So this is where the family punya comes in. Then the third thing is the parents of the teachers, of the children. They must play a role. All we talk about is government teachers. The parents don't see it.
Yes.
The missing link is the parents. I've been young Pertua PIBG for a number of years. You see, when being the YDP, when come for meeting every year, the B40 group, nobody attended. Only a few, hardly. But their children are always lagging behind. We want to help. But the teachers, especially the teachers, they focus on like my children, because they bring string of A's to the school. So, nama sekolah na. But my children complain to me, why is it every time class tambahan, they were picked? Why is it at the class motivation, they were picked to attend? I said, go and get those people who are not motivated to attend those apa.
Okay.
That's all.
Thank you very much. I think basically what we need to do, instead of looking at pull factors, like as Francis has said, we need to move away from the vernacular with all this kind of thinking, and we need to make national schools pull factors. Because I think 30 years ago, we never thought about sending our children to international schools. We never thought about sending our children to vernacular schools. It was not the choice, because if you sent to vernacular school, the prestige was low. But what we need to do is we need to fortify our national schools. Perhaps we need to reduce a little bit of, as someone said earlier, have less Islamic classes, because 16% of ours,
16 or 60?
16 of the school hours is focused on Islam. Parents should take over. We should also have partnership, which is something that schools can do at their level. Partnership with parents, programs with parents, have education for parents. I think the demand for national schools is to become pull factors. They have to understand that they are in a competition. They have to have better teachers. They have to be able to compete with vernacular schools. They have to compete with that. They have to have better quality. That way, they can attract back the students. We can have more of a national identity, unifier, etc. in national schools. I think that's all we have the time for. I think 1.5 hours is not enough. I'd like to and there are so many questions which we will try and
Sorry.
reply.
The question, so sorry. Okay.
Yeah, so I'd like to thank Francis and Azmil and Penang and Professor Majid. Thank you very much, and the audience for having taken the trouble and to FM2. Thank you very much. That's all.